Go and hit that like button when you join in on the live stream today. By hitting that like button, the YouTube algorithm will pick up the video, spread it around for more people to join in, and it's always more fun when we have more people joining in on the conversation. Left a few links down in the description for you guys. In these links, you're going to find one of them being an article talking about a Kansas State University study saying that there is ample supply of houses, right? That there is no shortage of homes that are out there. What we have is an inability for low income earners to be able to buy a house. So basically, it's not a shortage of houses, it's a shortage of affordable houses. That's the problem. And that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. When I saw this, I was just like, okay, listen, there is one way to set prices, supply and demand. That's it. There is no other way, right? And all this idea of what it is that the government or what society or what the banks or anybody could do to try and bring more people to the homes or bring more homes to the people doesn't work. Like, none of the stuff that people are talking about is ever going to work. You're not going to be able to lower interest rates to create a situation in which that more people can buy homes. And by raising the interest rates, it didn't deter the housing market at all, right? If it doesn't make obvious sense now that the interest rates adjustments failed the Federal Reserve, if you cannot see that in housing, I don't know where else to point at it, right? You think about it. Once they raised the interest rates and the mortgage rates went up, and everybody said there's no way that anybody's going to be able to afford a home and we're going to see prices crash, it didn't happen, right? It didn't happen in that fashion. It's because the raising of interest rates no longer has the impact on the economy like it once did. See, this is really where I think a lot of people have become so disillusioned, not by just everything, but like they have an actual belief that the government is to blame or can solve a problem. Like, even some of the millennials issues, right? You know, they have a problem with immigration, they have a problem with abortion, they have all this stuff, but it's really getting into a house is their biggest issue. And whoever they vote for, they're going to vote for the person that is most likely going to be able to create a situation in which that they're going to be able to get into a house. This is the funny thing about it, is that there's nobody you can vote for who's going to change the situation. See, the problem is an abundance of money. That's what it comes down to. The Federal Reserve and their quantitative easing that had taken place over the last decade, right? Even before that, going all the way back to the Great Financial Crisis, right? That effort alone created an abundance of money. That abundance of money is now finding its way into the leases and rents. See, we can go and reinvent the wheel and find out reasons and throw all this blame around, but if Cantillon can describe it from hundreds of years ago, then there's no reason to blame anything other than that, other than the economic forces that are at play. Listen to this. This is coming from Cantillon's essay on economic theory. This is chapter 8, Further Reflections on the Increase and Decrease of Money in the State. He says this: I know no better measure than the leases and rents of property owners to judge the abundance and scarcity of money in circulation. When land is leased at a higher rate, it is a sign that there is plenty of money in the state. But when land has to be leased at a much lower rate, it shows, other things being equal, that money is scarce. See, it doesn't matter what you do, so long as there's an abundance of money in the system, you're going to find rents and leases going for an incredibly high price, because that's the sign. No better sign of an abundance of money in the system than through the rents and leases. And so when we think about what it is that you expect the government to do about this, there is no situation that they can come up with that there's going to be an ability for people to be provided with homes, right? Unless they straight up start taxing people to build homes, which is going to be a burden on the taxpayer, which isn't going to go over very well. But unless they actually go for that, there is no way to increase the amount of homes that are out there without literally deregulation, getting out of the way, for the builders, the entrepreneurs, the homeowners who want to build to step in and have an environment in which that they would want to produce, right? That's the problem that we face today. There's nothing that the government's going to do. There's nothing they can do. I mean, you think about it, all the way back for the last 20 years, government involvement has done nothing but create a situation in which that it has now become harder for the individual to get into a house. Back in the 80s, prior to the 80s, it was very common for people to build their own home. A guy working at a gas station who had a little piece of land could stop by the lumberyard on his way to his property and piece a house together over the course of the summer. It didn't take that much skills. It wasn't that complicated. It was something that people did. That sort of thing doesn't happen anymore. The chances of somebody getting into a house or being able to buy a house is going to get harder going into the future. You can only have to look at time to see it, right? Think about it. There was a time in this country where a single income could provide for an entire family. The house, the car, the kids, the college, the vacations, the retirement, all that off of a single income. It doesn't work like that anymore. And it's not going to go back to it. It's only going to get harder and worse as we go forward. And it's easier to recognize it for what it is. From studying Cantillon's essay, understanding the abundance of money being in the system, understanding what it is that's driving this wedge ever deeper, and knowing that there is nobody you can vote for that is going to create a situation in which it's going to make it better. And again, like adjusting of interest rates, which is really the only thing that the bank has the ability to do, doesn't impact the economy like it once did. There was a time then that we could have looked at the Federal Reserve and say, hey, the raising of interest rates will impact the real estate market, start to bring it down in a reasonable fashion for, the everyday average person to maybe get a shot at the prices of it. It doesn't work like that. The moment that the price comes down, there is too many people who are eager, and if there's even a little bit of a price drop, they jump on it, right? There is simply not enough homes out there. The money that is now running abundant through the system is going to continue to drive the real estate market higher. Right? We only have to look to essays like Cantillon, right, to see it, and to see that this is not something that is new to an economy. This is something that has taken place in the past, and it will take place again. All right, let's go and check this out. We got Marcus Blackman with the 1999. Thank you very much. About a month into watching your channel, and the value is unmatched. You've opened my mind so much regarding economics. I truly appreciate what you do. Yeah, Marcus, thank you so much. I appreciate you hanging out and listening to some of the theories that I have, come up with. Some of these old economic forces that I see, from hundreds of years ago that are relevant today. Once we start piecing this together, we have a conversation about it, you can start recognizing it. You see it out there. You're like, man, I recognize the bullwhip effect. I recognize, some of the Cantillon effect when it comes to some of these nations who are losing their exports to foreign competition. And it begins like, at first, we want to blame government. We want to blame these greedy corporations. We want to blame a bunch of stuff, right? But those are symptoms. We can blame symptoms all day long, right? It doesn't cure the problem. We have to look back at the problem. Once we recognize what the problem is, we realize, man, there is no reversing course. There's no reversing course to solve the problem. The problem only gets worse from here. But it's best to recognize what it is so we can position ourselves, right? But once you know it, once you see it, then you can't unsee it. And then now, it's just like, again, like I don't blame externals. I don't blame politicians or anything. I look for the reasonings, the natural economic forces that are happening there. And then I try to figure out what it is that I need to do to position myself on accordance of that. Thank you very much for the 1999. I really appreciate you, brother. All right, Brody, good to see you up in the house, man. All right, Crispy209. People now moving into tiny homes. Never seen that in my life until recently. Simon, do you mean no housing shortage where you are, or nationwide, or what? No, I use that for a title just to try and get the clicks. Ultimately, I'm referring to an article that is down in the description of the video where Kansas State University has done a study saying there is no housing shortage and that there's ample housing supply. My argument to it is that they are saying that what we have is a price affordability problem, shortage. And I'm saying that's a natural economic occurrence that has taken place due to the abundance of money. And there is no reason to reinvent the wheel on the reasons why. Cantillon has already described it from hundreds of years ago, that there is no better measure than the leases and rents of property owners to judge the abundance and scarcity of money in circulation. So they can, the University of Kansas, or whatever, Kansas State University, can go and go and describe what it is that they are seeing all day long. But if they don't recognize that it's the Cantillon effect, I don't know what to say. Like, I recognize it for what it is. It's the Cantillon effect. It's something similar to the time that I was describing what was happening in the lumber industry. And it was somebody in the comments section who was saying, dude, what you are describing is the bullwhip effect. Now, at the time, I hadn't heard of the bullwhip effect. I knew a little bit about it. But once I had gone in and researched more about the bullwhip effect, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I am seeing taking place in lumber. So it was me describing what it was that I was seeing in lumber that somebody else said, hey, this is the economic force that you are describing. Very much like this study coming from Kansas State University, very much in the same way. They are describing the conditions, right? There's ample housing out there. There's no shortage of housing. What we are facing is an affordability issue. Oh, really? That's the Cantillon effect. It's not new. This is old. This is the same thing that happens throughout history, time and time again. And there's no reason to think that it is going to be any different this time around, right? I had somebody tell me that, Cantillon essay is no longer relevant to the economy today. I very much disagree, right? Granted, back in Cantillon's day, it was talking about gold and silver, and that created much different economic forces than when you have a fiat currency, which creates a whole bigger, much grander economic force that starts to take place within the economy. But the underlying principles that he was talking about are still at play. There's no reason to think that that's changed. I mean, they're still very much, very, very relevant. All right, moving on. All right, let's see here. Steve, added whatever your name is there, bro. All right, any opinions, thoughts on deep sea mining? Yeah, I mean, it's all cost, right? I mean, however, whether you're digging into a mountain or digging down at the bottom of the ocean, it's all a matter of cost, right? How much energy, how much time, how much people, whatever, in order to get to it. If you can get to it and the price that is being paid for the product that you're pulling off the bottom of the sea, whether it's, precious metals or whatever, then, hey, that's the way it is, right? Cost versus, versus profit or price. So, I mean, I like the idea. I mean, I even like the idea of, going out into space and collecting meteors, or something. But, like, whether or not it's like something I would invest in, I don't know about that. All right, I'm sitting waiting for houses to be liquidated into my pocket. God bless the government for taking all the value and giving it to me. Ha ha ha. I feel like an evil bastard. Buy a house quick. Agents use previous sales as starting points for value of price. So when you get a bunch of people flipping properties 2 to 3 times a year and enough together, it's a huge artificial price increase. Who said everything going on with housing market is not on purpose? Well, okay. So let's think about what's going on with housing. We have a concentration of people who own them. The prices are incredibly high. People are wondering why it is that they can't get into a house, and the prices are incredibly elevated both in rents and leases. Now, who's to say that it's not done on purpose? So was it done on purpose back in Cantillon's day too? Like, because that would be the same logic, right? You would have to say that it was manipulated back and forced upon us back in Cantillon's day when he was describing it, because it's something similar that has taken place again today. So yeah, you can go ahead and blame all you want. Like, there's plenty of blame to go around. There's no doubt that you can find reasons and excuses and people to blame. But then there's also economic forces that are underlying here that if you don't recognize them, then you're going to have to go and blame somebody because you don't have any other reasons. right? So once you recognize that there is economic forces that are at play, then you can go and you look at these politicians and you're like, man, these guys are responding. They're responding to the people who are pissed. They're responding to the economic conditions. But the fact is that they are responding to the economic conditions. They didn't create it, right? They didn't create this. We did. We as the people did this, right? We were the industrious ones. We were the ones who were producers and savers. We were the ones who started moving into luxuries. We were the ones who started realizing that foreign production was much cheaper than our domestic manufacturers. Boom, right? Here's the problem. Everybody started figuring it out that there's rise in the luxuries was going to create one situation only, and that if we turned it off, we were all going to fall into poverty. It's a 7-step process, right? It's 7 steps, literally 7 steps on how this is taken. So simple, right? And you can fine tune it all you want, and you can inject politician blame anywhere you want into it, but it starts off with the people being industrious, right? Now you can't, no group of guys got together and says, hey buddies, come here, get together, let's be real quiet, don't let those guys hear. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create a situation, and all the people are going to get real industrious and work hard to create businesses and items and inventions and products, and they're going to go nuts with this, and we're going to create a situation that allows them to do that. Like, does that make sense? Or did we happen to have some really ambitious people here in the United States who traveled here from all over the world with their ideas, their concepts, their inventions, came here to a farming, agricultural, producing nation, shared those ideas, became very industrious, right? You see what's happened here? This is really what happened in America. They didn't create America. America had all the wonderful things from all over the world concentrated in one section, right? Now, granted, they might have given the ability for these people to rise, right? Saying, hey, we got options. We're not limiting you. Go forward, have fun, do whatever it is that you're going to do. But it was the fact that the people were industrious first, right? Once the people are industrious, what do? They produce and save. Again, this is not something that was forced upon the people. The people choose to do this all on their own, right? Think about it. Even you as an individual, if you have a job, you're going to be a producer saver. Like, you might just go and dump all your money, but most of the time when you first get a job or you're starting to make some decent money, you try to become a saver. You're trying to save so that you can buy a car, so that you can buy a house, so that you can, maybe start a family or something. Producing, saving, right? That's what happens first. You're industrious, you become a producer saver. Well, then you raise your standard of living, right? Step 3, everybody wants to enjoy what it is that they have worked hard for. If you got 5 years under your belt for a company, you might want to enjoy a new car, right? Or a better place to live, or some nicer clothes. But you're going to start raising your standard of living. You're going to eat better food, right? Well, this is the problem. You raise your standard of living, what's going to end up happening is you're going to start competing with foreign production. Foreign production is going to start finding its way in. Because once you start raising your standard of living, the prices start to move up. Foreign competition says, hey man, if you don't want to spend your money on higher prices, we can bring this foreign competition, this foreign production in, and then you don't have to spend your money on higher priced goods. You can keep that money, right? You're earning more, and now you're spending your money on the same prices. That price increase didn't happen because you got foreign competition coming in. Well, this is a problem, because after you have been industrious and you produced and saved and you raised your standard of living and you started moving in to this foreign production, guess what? Domestic manufacturers are leaving, right? It's actually the rise into luxury first, and then the domestic manufacturers leave, right? So number 5 is the rise of luxuries. Number 6 is the domestic manufacturers leaving. Number 7 is once the new money turns off, everybody falls into poverty. Right? 7-step process. Cantillon describes it so well. Now, if you want to go ahead and throw politicians into the middle of that to blame, just go for it. That's fine. But there's somewhere in there that they didn't have anything to do with it, but you can definitely blame them for it if you want. But that's the 7 steps that it takes, and it's literally the move into luxuries that really does it. Moving on, there are 3 types of people in this world. Those who wonder what happened always get mad. Yeah, I blame the bread and circus. To clear the debt, say bye-bye to stocks, share, crypto, bonds, etc., In the new world, only real value will be in solid equities. Mr. Bull. Dixter, this isn't the consequence of politics. That's right. It doesn't take a multimillionaire to tell you folks that inflation is actually 25% per year than the purchasing on assets which goes up, and inflation going up is a good idea. All right. Larry, you're looking for answers in the wrong places. Alright, I'm a rich man and have a relationship with Jesus Christ. There you go, Kurt. According to Brandon, there is no inflation. As we go into a world war or civil war, not everybody else see action. Some of us will just be happy that we live on a well away from the city. We keep our millennial kids working and take a small percentage to us to live okay. Can't wave the flag and drive a foreign car. Solid assets, yes, not virtual ones. All right. We need tariffs on multinationals and increased taxes on the wealthy. Yeah, I don't know. Tariffs are a tax on the consumer, and taxing the wealthy doesn't do anything again but create a situation in which that people are less employed and less opportunity for people to actually move up into a wealthy position. I mean, you think about it, like I'm not wealthy, but I would like to be wealthy someday, and I don't want to be punished for being there, right? But if you're telling me that if I work really hard to acquire something in my life that then puts me in a wealthy position, I'm going to be punished for that, then why would I do it? Like, I'm not understanding what it is that I get for working damn hard to get to that position if I'm just going to be like told that I'm a greedy bastard and that I need to be punished and that I can't have it. Like, why would I try? I don't understand. Like, why would you even create a situation in which that would be the case? Like, people who have that kind of mentality towards, like, let's tax the rich, like this, I don't understand it. I mean, obviously they don't want to be rich in their life. It must be because they're basically saying, hey, if I ever make it to that position, I want to be punished. Like, does that make sense? I think Peter Schiff said it perfectly. Like, some guy said, if you make like a certain amount of money, you should be taxed like 75% of your income after that. And he tells the guy, he's like, wait a minute, after a certain amount, I can only make 25 cents on the dollar. And the guy says, that's right. And he says, I wouldn't do it. He says, I would earn up to that point, and then I would shut business down, lay everybody off, and say, hey, I'll see you all next spring when we fire back up again, because I'm not going to work for 25 cents on the dollar, period. Right? And I don't blame them. I wouldn't either, no matter how much money you make. Right? So that's what I think about as well. It was just like, do you want people to actually try in this world? Like, I mean, if I am going to try hard to try and acquire the things that I need or want or believe that I could build, businesses, whatever it is, investments of some sort. And then I get there and somebody says, dude, you jerk, you deserve to be punished for that. And I'm thinking, for what, man? You know how hard it was to get here? You know how much I had to sacrifice to get here so that I could acquire this so I can get punished for it? What, it doesn't make any sense. All right, moving on. All right, before my groceries cost about $60 a week, since month now $85 for the same stuff. When wealth was taxed at the highest rates and when this country was at its most prosperous, this is a widely known fact. The average American has done worse since the tax has gone down. Earned income shouldn't be taxed so heavily. So you make widgets, profit on a small one, 15%, profit on a medium one, 20%, cost. Well, a little bit more effort. Which would you build? Cost 200,000 versus 4. I have to think about that one a little bit. All right. Sorry, brother. I don't mean to like just go over your comment there, but rich is relative. If everyone's had $1 million, then the dollar would be worth 0.000. More money, more problems. Why buy a Suburban when you can buy an MP Sprinter at half the price? However, non-earned income should be taxed much higher. I think the 40s and 50s, the highest income rate was 90%. Stay curious. Yeah, taxing rich is usually not the problem. Government spending is the problem. It's not even government spending. You have to think about why it is that the government is even spending. Like the situation that we are now in is due to the fact that we had severed ourselves from the gold standard and chose not to fall back into poverty. That's the problem, right? Like people are like, man, I know what the problem is government spending, it's this, it's all this other stuff. No, the problem is that we were no longer a manufacturing state and we weren't willing to give up our standard of living. That was the problem. See, if we had cut back on our standard of living and became and stayed the producing nations saying, hey, we can't elevate ourselves like this, you can't have this high standard of living. You have to be able to compete with the rest of the manufacturers around the globe out there. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you do not move into luxuries. How is it that a government or I mean, the only way a government can do that is to be like a socialistic, communistic nation, right? In order to say you people can't work that hard, you can't earn that much money, you can't start those businesses, you can't do all this stuff, because if you do, you're going to move into luxuries. If you move into luxuries, you're going to start driving in the foreign competition, right? Think about the 7-step process that happens through this. Now, back when they severed the gold standard and moved into a complete fiat currency, it was going to take ever increasing amounts of US Treasury issuance in order to provide the world with a safe and liquid asset like the US Treasury, which meant that the government had to go into massive spending, deficit spending, like major debt, in order to provide the world with a safe and liquid asset, the US Treasuries, because the world was demanding something to do transactions with. There wasn't enough gold. There was loads of fiat currency. Everybody saw it. Everybody knew it. Nobody wanted it, but they had no other choice because they wanted to work. And that's the problem with it is that it wasn't so much that people chose it by like, hey, this is an awesome thing, or that a government said, hey, we'll set this up and screw the people. The problem is that everybody was doing transactions with gold, but there wasn't enough gold, so the dollar was being used to provide the world with the transactional ability, right, to have a currency that had some kind of ability to provide for the world to do the transactions with. And once everybody realized you printed far too much of this up, it was like, well, yeah, but you all wanted to do transactions, right? You all wanted to sell stuff to each other. There wasn't enough gold. You demanded something. The world was provided with dollars, and now they're pissed that there was too many printed. Well, I mean, I could see why, but dang, what did you expect, right? It was all going to fall into poverty and depression, and not be able to do any kind of transactions with each other because there wasn't enough currency to do it with. Here, all these fiat dollars were out there. Everybody was just like, hey, they're almost as good as gold. Let's trade these things. And everybody started going into business, right? So this is really where the problem is. It was like, yeah, government spending. Yeah, it was. Sure, it was government spending that did it. But if they didn't do that, then there wouldn't have been all the growth and all the opportunities that everybody took advantage of from the massive amounts of dollars that were out there to do transactions with, right? Like, I'm not trying to defend it, like, at all. Like, I don't think it's a good thing. I personally believe that, everybody should be majority into precious metals, stocks, bonds, real estate, Bitcoin, whatever, but not so much in the dollar unless you think that there is a buying opportunity going into the future. That's my personal belief on it. But to understand what it is that's happening out here, to blame the government, to say like you guys are at fault for this, so it was just like, not really, right? I mean, yeah, they're at fault because they go into debt, they're at fault because they do this deficit trading, they're at fault for all these things, but the world demanded that to take place. They don't realize it. Like, they demanded it to happen, and now we suffer the consequences from that demand. All right, what time is it? All right, guys, I got about another, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. Hey, right on, Don. Thank you so much for the $20, man. It's really cool of you. I really appreciate all the support you guys throw at the channel. I mean, even right now, we have 415 people watching with 113 likes. If you go and hit that like button, you'll be supporting the channel. It's not just about these super chats. It's about, the entire community and everything you guys do for me and for the channel and everything. So go hit that like button. Don, thank you for the 20 bucks. He says, hey, UE, is one of your videos you mentioned the government lied about economics numbers against its adversaries not to gain on edge? What is the name of the doctrine document? Do you have any video on that topic? Thanks. There is. If you type into the searches in the search engine or the search for my channel and through the videos, legal, legal lies. FASB, FASAB, FASB 56. And now, if you go and you look at that video that I did, and it was somewhat popular. I mean, it was still in the early days of the channel, so it wasn't like I had a lot of followers at the time. But if you go and you watch that video, Legal Lies, FASB 56, go down into the description of that video. There's a link to a news article. I think it's still good. And it describes FASB 56 pretty well, right? And this is where the government basically has stated that the numbers that we look at, whether it's any of the numbers that we look at, it doesn't matter what they are, all of them are fake, right? Now, they're not saying that every one of them is exactly a fake, but they could be a fake, and they said that what you are looking at may not be the real numbers, and that the real numbers are hidden for national security reasons. The numbers they are presenting are good enough to do investments or calculations or all the stuff that you're doing, all your business decisions. The numbers are good enough for that, but they are not the real numbers, right? Because the real numbers have to be hidden for national security reasons. And again, that is FASB 56, Legal Lies. I did a video on it literally 6 years ago or something like that. It was a while ago. Very few people talked about it, even recognize that it's happened. That's one of the reasons why I put these videos out, sometimes on these off topics that doesn't really make like a lot of sense to a lot of people out there. Like, it might be kind of concerning, but then we kind of just drop the topic, because later we can come back and say, no, right there, right? We all knew it. We knew that it was taking place. It's one of the reasons why you don't hear me quoting a lot of numbers, right? Like, you don't hear me talking about, like, it was this and there used to be that and they're this and then they whatever. I don't do that. Like, I don't really ever talk about the numbers at all, because I already know that, like, by talking about the numbers, I'm basically talking a BS number. Right? I already know that. I already know, like, even looking at it, it's a BS number. Now, there is a way to look at them that may be a little bit more legit than just the idea that they're all fake, and that is how much they move, in what direction they're moving. And I think that is very telling to accuracy. Like, I think that part has a lot more legitimate information that you can use than the actual numbers themselves, because I don't think that those things are real. I mean, I guess some of them could be, but you don't know. Like, once you tell me that it's a possible lie, that's it. I don't believe any of them. Even if they're real, I was just like, it's a potential lie. I can't absorb that information or take it for reality, or take, it's just a grain of salt. It's just like, hey, whatever, it could be, not. Who knows, All right. Here we go. Let me get back up here a little ways. In the world, if the world always raises the standard through regulating how things are done, you will create people who cannot keep up and will need helping hand from the state. Less regulation, less poverty. Deplorable. Cool. It's just the way it is. Like, if you have a rise in industrious people, some of them are going to become producers and savers where others are not. Those who become producers and savers will have no other choice. Everybody, like, they have a choice. Human nature doesn't really give them a choice, but you have to consciously say, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get the new car. I'm not going to get the new clothes. I'm not going to spend my money on nice food or whatever. I'm going to live the same old low-income life no matter what my income is, right? Nobody does that, because human nature is always the same. Man, awesome, I got the money. I'm going to go enjoy it. I'm going to buy something nice for myself, right? And that's the issue right there. It's that move into luxuries, and there's nothing you can do to stop it because it's human nature. It's just what people want to do, right? Now, if you understood from the child what happens from this move into luxury, this purchasing of foreign production, the exporting of domestic manufacturing, understanding why it happens. It's that move into luxury. People want to blame it on politicians. That's fine. Go ahead, blame it on politicians all you want. It's not that. It's the move into luxuries that did it, because what that did is it created the higher prices, which then allowed foreign competition to come in, which domestic manufacturers can't compete with, right? It's like you can blame politicians all day long for that. Go for it. I mean, there's underlying economic reasonings that is happening here, and it's due to the human nature of wanting to enjoy your production and savings. That's the issues, right? And now, again, the 7-step process, however you want to keep breaking it up or make it more complicated or whatever, but it literally comes down to that, right? Industrious people, saving in production, standard of living increase, the rise in foreign production, moving out of domestic manufacturers, luxuries, and poverty. I mean, it's just the way it goes down. Simon, I don't mean to divert you onto an irrelevant topic. That's all right, Brody. What you got? But do you have any tips on how to break an addiction? I know you said you got angry. Is there another way? Well, Brody, I mean, I can't tell you about some of the other addictions out there, but when it came to me for alcohol, it was literally getting to the point of hitting that rock bottom where it was just like I was almost in desperation mode of like, man, I'm gonna lose my house, I'm gonna lose everything, I'm gonna start losing it all, right? Like, because it's just like literally moments away. It's just like the deterioration just kept happening. It was just like a little bit more, and then pretty soon it was just like I ain't got a car, and like I don't have any money, and I'm super in debt, and I don't have any credit, and I don't have anybody who's helping me. It's just deteriorating, deteriorating, deteriorating. And it was just like, okay, so I got like about a month, right? I got like about a month, and then like I don't know what the hell. It's like it's gonna get really bad. So I knew I had to quit. My wife, she did in-house rehab. She did 30 days, inside, dealing with, all the rehabilitation stuff that she went through. I mean, there was a lot, mostly mental, studying, reading, trying to figure things out, whatever. Um, I think probably for most people, if they have an issue with an addiction, especially one where they're like at home, feeling bored, not knowing what to do, and can't get their head off of whatever it is that their choice of addiction was, and they can't figure out what it is that they need to do. I mean, I'm assuming at this point you are really committed yourself, but you just don't know. Like you want to do it, right? You want to give it up. You don't want to drink. You don't want to go and smoke or whatever it is that you got going on. And it's eating you up, right? So that's addiction. It's like almost as if you're like in a fog, right? Like you can't think right. You just like that's the only thing you're focused on. You're just like it's eating you up. You don't know how to like handle it. You're irritable, whatever is going on. That's addiction, right? That's it, man. That's what it feels like. So now you get to sit and feel addiction. You just get to sit there and feel it. Feel like this is what it feels like, right? And observe the feeling that you have. Think about everything that you're thinking about, like all the thoughts that are running through your head. Just observe them, like be aware of them. Know that they're there. Don't try to suppress them. Don't try and not think about them, because that's going to actually cause it to be worse and make you want to drink. That's the reason why you are drinking, is because you're suppressing those things. Let it out. Observe them, right? Look at it. Be pissed at your childhood for whatever reason it was, right? Or some family member or somebody in your life or a boss or an occurrence or something that took place, right? Don't suppress that. Pull it out. Look at it. Stare at it for a while. Pay attention to what it is, right? Know what it is that has happened, and understand that there's nothing you can do to change it, and that whatever it is that had happened in your life, the only reason why it is bothering you or messing you up is because of the meaning that you have given it. They screwed me up, right? It's their fault. It's somebody else, whatever. Okay, yeah, fine. Bad things happen to everybody. Some people do some really horrible stuff to other people, but you are responsible for the way that you react to it, the meaning that you are giving that, man. And that's what you have to observe. All those things that are running up that normally you would drink to try or smoke or whatever to try and suppress because you didn't want to deal with it or think about it anymore, pull that out and deal with it. Look at it. Like, if you go and drink, you won't be able to do it. So now that you're not drinking, you're in your fog, you're not feeling it, you're feeling the addictions, and you have all these weird thoughts and stuff that are coming up, observe them. Sit there and look at them. Pay attention to them for a while. Don't suppress them, right? And then once you thought about it for a while, let it go. Just literally let it go. And no matter how much you don't want to hold on to them because you feel that if you let it go, then you're somehow like letting go of something that you hold a lot of value towards. Right? I hold value on this because it was such a big deal that had happened to me. And now I'm like, so screwed up for it. Let it go. Right? Because see, what happens is that if you hold on to it, what you're doing is you're holding an energy within you that then has the rest of the world reacting to that particular energy. You wonder why it is that some things just don't come into your life. It's probably because you're holding on to a negative energy from your past life. Even though you don't discuss it with anybody, you don't have anything. It's like, hey, man, I don't bring it up. Nobody even knows about it. They feel that within you. They can feel that energy. You have to pull it out, look at it, and let it go. All right? And that's how you deal with addictions. That's how I dealt with it. Like, I had to go cold turkey. I didn't have anybody. It was just like, trying like AA and stuff like that. I didn't do any of that stuff. I recommend that if you're trying to give up alcohol or something, that you definitely go to the rooms, right? It makes so much of a difference to be in a room with other people who are of the same mind, sharing their stories, right? Because a lot of times people don't realize that they're not alone on this, right? There is other people who are facing the exact same things that you are, and although you might be embarrassed by it or thinking that it might be too much for you or too overwhelming or something like that, there's other people who are doing this exact same thing right now. Right? And you can share in that energy by being in those rooms with those people. I didn't do it that way. I wish I had. Right? Because I actually got a lot of residual from my wife who did go to AA, who was very much involved in it, right? So I got a lot of residual from her, but ultimately, had I gone into those rooms, it would have been so much easier than to try and just deal with it myself, because that's not easy to do. All right, what time is it? All right, guys, I got like 2 minutes. I gotta go. Been there, great learning experience. Yeah. All right, I'm not spilling my guts in AA. F that. Just stop drinking. Hey, James. Hey, I just quit drinking. I didn't go to the rooms. I didn't spill my guts. I didn't do any of that stuff to the people, right? Turned out that after I finally gave it all up in frustration, I spilled my guts out here on YouTube instead, right? I mean, I didn't even, like, at least in AA, they don't talk about it to other people. Here, I mean, you get to go and rewatch it over and over again. Yeah. Yeah, the rooms do matter. They absolutely do matter. All right. Simon, going to be late getting back to work. I am. All right. Thank you so much, Simon. Yeah, thank you, Brody. Thank you for being here, brother. You're doing a great job there, doing the administration work there to the channels. All right. Isn't it a problem that they aren't building reasonable starter homes? Like, it's not that they're not building reasonable starter homes. I've talked to builders. How come you don't build these small homes? There's no profit in it. There's no profit in building a starter home. There's only profit in building big, giant homes, the most expensive ones out there. You're going for the money. You're going for the profit. You're going for the profit margin. There's too much input cost, too much labor cost, too much material cost, too much stuff going into it to try and build a starter home. And by the time you're done, the profit in it is just not there for the builder. They have to go for these big, giant, extravagant homes in order for them to have a profitable business. This is one of the reasons why you don't see so many of them out there. I mean, there are people who do them, but not. It's just not, the numbers are just not there. Okay, guys. I love you very much, but I gotta go. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.